Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Sydney from PhoneDog.com, and welcome to Phone Dog Live, our podcast here on Ustream, also on YouTube, also on Facebook, although we hardly ever have anyone watching from Facebook, but we do broadcast this on Facebook. If you're watching this on YouTube, check out the description below the video because I'll have a timeline. You can skip around and watch whatever parts you want to watch. If you're watching this on Ustream, you don't have that luxury. You have to watch the whole thing. You have to. Actually, you don't have to. You can just leave if you want to. I don't care. You can leave. Doesn't bother me. We have about three main topics, but one of them is pretty big. The Apple lawsuits, mostly Apple versus Samsung, but also Apple versus Motorola. Apple is having not so good of a week. So, but I do want to start off with T-Mobile and Nokia, just because I think it's pretty cool. It is. We don't exactly know what they're going to be announcing. Well, actually, I'll just tell you the story, and then I can start talking about it rather than just yapping about it, and you guys have no idea what I'm talking about. So this week, T-Mobile and Nokia released or sent out invitations to this event. I will show it to you guys. And it's an invitation, just, basically letting everyone know that they're about to release something and it's going to be huge and all that. Now, obviously, we're not 100% sure what they're going to announce. Obviously, we know it's a Nokia device. There have been a lot of rumors that the Lumia 710 is going to be announced in the US on T-Mobile. So that's kind of our guess. I mean, at this point, we're probably, 99% sure that's what it is. We also got this leaked picture from the FCC where it's the Lumia 710. And as you can see down there at the bottom, it has the Nokia or the T-Mobile logo, pretty plain. So, putting everything together, we're pretty much sure that this is what T-Mobile is going to announce. Obviously, it could be something else. I don't know, but I mean, there's a 99% chance it's going to be the Lumia 710, which is cool. More Windows Phone devices. I think that's awesome. I know not everyone's a fan of Windows Phone, and some people probably think it's not a great OS, but if you use it, it really is a good OS, and it's nice to have more options. To me, this isn't big news because what I want to see is a Lumia 800 or the Lumia 900. And of course, I'm guessing, and maybe this is sort of like an unspoken assumption that all bloggers kind of have, but my guess is that the 800 and the 900, if it comes to the US, will be on AT&T. And I'm saying that just because one, currently the international Lumia 800, if you were to, import it to the US, it only works on AT&T's 3G bands. Now, obviously, they can change that whenever they manufacture it for the US. They can make a T-Mobile version, but just, it'd be easier to keep it, to just send it to AT&T. Also, T-Mobile usually gets like budget options. Their Android lineup is great, but still they're kind of known as like a budget carrier. Their prices kind of show that or reflect that. And so I think, just those two things, I kind of have a feeling that AT&T is going to get the 800. The 900, which is the phone that I really want, that hasn't even been announced anywhere. So we don't even know it's coming to the US. We've just heard that it could. But anyway, that's the 710. If you're on T-Mobile, if you're looking for a Windows Phone device. Now, T-Mobile also has the HTC Radar, and which is also a good phone. I mean, it's not like, the HTC Titan, which is on AT&T, has a large display. It's a little more impressive. But the HTC Radar is still a good phone. Has I believe, a Super AMOLED display, even though it's, 3.7 inches, a little bit smaller. Still has a great display. And, of course, it's HTC, so it has beautiful hardware and, a great processor and everything. So, if you're trying to decide, should I get the HTC Radar, should I get the Lumia 710? Honestly, if you were to compare them both side by side, Of course, I haven't been able to do that, obviously, since the Lumia isn't in the US yet. Performance is probably going to be about equal on both devices. And of course, if we get both phones, I'm sure we'll have some sort of a dogfight or, some sort of comparison video. But really, I don't think one has a major advantage over the other one. Now, if it were the Lumia 800, I would definitely say go for the Lumia 800. But the 710, it's not as attractive as the 800. The design is a little more plasticky. It's just not as impressive, really, even though the specs are pretty much the same. It's just not as impressive physically. And so, personally, I would still go with the HTC Radar because the hardware to me is a little more impressive. The Lumia 710 has Nokia Drive, Nokia Maps. I know the way I say Nokia bothers you guys. Nokia, not Nokia. Nokia. Sorry. Has, Nokia Drive, Nokia Maps. I just said Nokia. I said it once right, and then I just went back to saying it the wrong way. And also their music service, I believe. So you do have a couple of software advantages there. But still, I'm kind of thinking that the 710 is not as impressive as I wish it were. I wish the 800 would come to the U.S. Of course, the reason I'm talking why I'm disappointed about the 800 going to AT&T is because I'm on T-Mobile. So I'm like, no, I want it to come to T-Mobile, but it's probably not going to. And then Verizon. This is just a quick note. People. Verizon doesn't have a lot of Windows Phone devices. AT&T, I think, has been a really strong contender with Windows Phone. And then T-Mobile has had some pretty good devices. But Verizon, they got the HTC trophy, and, that was pretty much it. But so people are like, when are you going to get more Windows Phone, or are you abandoning Windows Phone? Verizon has said that Windows Phone needs to get LTE devices in order for them to really support the OS more, which makes sense. You want devices that are going to be competitive. You want devices that you're going to be able to sell, and there's no use taking a risk on a device that you feel like, is not going to be able to sell. Now, granted, this is Verizon, who has, some pretty crappy feature phones, and also took a chance on the Microsoft Kin. So it's like, why not? Maybe the Kin was what ruined it. Maybe they don't want to take another chance on Microsoft. So maybe that's what it is. But anyway, that's what we're guessing is the Lumia 710 coming to T-Mobile, and that announcement will be on the 14th, I believe the invitation said. So really, just a couple of days. But anyway, so our big topic for this week is Apple's lawsuit. And like I said earlier, Apple has not been a good week for Apple. Of course, Apple has lawsuits going on around the entire globe. They have lawsuits in the US, Australia, Germany, Asia. Am I missing one? I don't think so. Basically the entire globe. And they'd won a couple. There's one in France that Apple won. There was another one against Germany, or against Samsung in Germany, that they also won. But other than that, this week it's been all bad for Apple because for the U.S. lawsuit, this was actually last week, but it was just after the podcast, so I'm going to use it for this week's news. Apple's request for a ban on Samsung Galaxy phones and tablets was denied by a U.S. judge. In Australia, Apple denied appeal in Australian Samsung Galaxy Tab battle where they tried to, again, have it banned, and it was overturned. They appealed it, and the judge said, no, we're not going to let you ban it. And then in Germany, in a patent lawsuit, Motorola got a victory and won that. So not a good week for Apple. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that with the U.S. case and the Australian case, these were motions for a preliminary injunction to just take effect before they actually started the trial. So, they're going to have a trial to see whether or not Samsung is infringing on patents and, other trade dress laws. But until the trial actually starts, which won't be until early next year, Apple wanted to have those products banned, citing the reasons of it's hurting us, we're losing market share, we're losing money, we're losing customers, so they wanted to have it banned. So, even though the courts did not grant them this injunction and did not have the products banned, it's not the final say because they're still going to have a trial. Now, I wrote an article about this. It's on phonedog.com, and basically just analyzing the U.S. case. Now, like, cases in Germany, obviously I don't speak German, so I don't have a lot of insight into the cases themselves, even though we know what's happening. Australia has different laws as well, but for the U.S. case, since that's the one that really affects us, or, affects most of our readers, I decided to, kind of analyze it and see what exactly the judge said. Why did she overturn that? My question for the article was does Apple actually have a case? And, it's something that we've argued about constantly, but now that it's going before the courts, now we have the law to really figure out, if Samsung is doing something wrong. We have judges. So now we're going to have, an unbiased opinion based on actual U.S. laws and the Constitution to actually get the answer to this. So I figured, the best person to go to get a fair answer as to, if Samsung is actually breaking the laws, it would be the court documents themselves. So I did that. I analyzed the court documents. I also got some help from a patent attorney. And so, he answered a bunch of my questions in regards to the ruling itself, at least for this preliminary injunction. And what I wanted to know primarily was, okay, so even though this is just a preliminary injunction, it's not the entire trial, does this give us any insight into what will happen in trial? Because this judge did not grant Apple an injunction to have Samsung's products banned, does that mean that it could happen in the trial itself? Does that mean that Apple could lose? And he said, to some degree, this does shed light on the probable outcome. However, he said that would be more the case if the court granted the injunction by its denial. Than by its denial. Denial could be the result of either a lack of fully developed evidence or the merits. So, because this isn't the actual trial, the judge didn't have access to all of the evidence that will eventually be presented, and some of Samsung or Apple's arguments might not have been fully developed just yet. So she could have just, not granted the injunction simply because she didn't have enough information to prove that Samsung products should be banned. So it kind of gives us a little insight into the thinking in terms of whenever you put laws, actual legal things into the equation, but it doesn't entirely tell us what the outcome will be. So basically, Apple claims that Samsung has committed trade dress infringement, trademark infringement, and design patent infringements, and have used these as a means of unjust enrichment. Now, we know what patent infringement is. You have a patent and someone makes a product that's exactly the same and then doesn't give you credit. That's patent infringement. Trade dress infringement is, it's a little more fuzzy in terms of the details. It's a little more hazy. Basically, trade dress is anything that contributes to the overall look and feel of a product and that is used by customers to identify the source of a product. This could be anything from colors, fonts, packaging, a logo, symbols, and pretty much anything else that customers use to identify the source of a product. For example, like Coca-Cola, their cans are usually red. They have the font, the font with the text that spells out Coca-Cola. It's just a color, it's just a font. But when you put it together, that's what people use to identify, okay, this is from Coca-Cola. So things like that. It's kind of, hazy details that you wouldn't normally consider to be, protectable under law. But whenever it falls under trade dress, then then the law does protect that company. So that's what trade dress is. Now, this preliminary injunction did not really deal with trade dress. It dealt mostly with patent infringement. And trade dress is like a whole different subject than patent infringement is easy. It's like, okay, I have a patent. Did you make a product that looks exactly like it? Yes or no? It's pretty simple. Trade dress is is a whole other discussion. So we're not going to talk about it because, again, like I said, it's a little more fuzzy. And in the case that I'm referring to, it, again, mostly dealt with patent infringement, which is still a big deal because, while trade dress may have more dire consequences because of what it could cause, patent infringement is still huge. Now, one of the arguments Samsung has a couple of main arguments. They have two main arguments. The first one is functionality. And it's kind of interesting that Samsung uses this argument because Samsung is basically using Apple's design theory or basically using Apple's design against it because everyone knows that Apple uses a minimalistic design. It's one of their mantras, shave it down to, it's all about functionality. You don't need all the other crap. It's just functionality, minimalistic. They use that with the iPhone, with the iPad, with Macs, MacBooks, everything. It's a minimalistic design, and that's what Apple is known for. But it's interesting that Samsung used that. They said that they made the case that Apple's patents are invalid because of their minimalistic design. And according to the order denying the motion for preliminary injunction, the court said, under this theory of design, minimalistic design, ornamentation is stripped down to pure functionality, and therefore, Samsung argues, the iPhone-related patents are invalid based on functionality. So Samsung says, well, your patent, because the design is so minimalistic, you haven't added anything outside of what's functional. You haven't added, any other adornment or any other features that are, basically just accessories. Your design is purely functional. And in a way, the court agreed with him or agreed with Samsung. Now, the court was really wishy-washy in its. If you read the documents, if you read the motion or denial to grant the injunction, the judge, you could kind of tell that she clearly did not want to handle this case because there's times when she agrees with Samsung and says, you know what, you have a case, but then she'll backtrack and say, but we still think you're infringing patents. Or she'll agree with Apple and say, you know what, you're right, but we don't think you'll be able to prove that in court. And it's just okay, so if you read the document, the court goes back and forth on each topic. Half of it she agrees with Apple and half of it she agrees with Samsung. The only reason she was able to make a decision is because she said, regardless, of whoever she agrees with, she said that Apple wasn't being done any harm by Samsung's products being sold. So anyway, if you read the document, it's she totally went back and forth. And this is one area, with a minimalistic design where it's stripped down to only what's functional. The court did agree that there were several areas of the patents that were of the patented design that were dictated by function. However, the entire design was not dictated by function, only parts of it. So, whatever that means, I'm not sure. But anyway, and that was kind of a common theme where the court said, okay, yeah, Apple, we think you have a point, but we don't think you'll be able to prove it. And it's just so what does that mean? Did they do something wrong or not? The court said just because various elements of Apple's iPhone patents enhance user experience does not necessarily mean that the patented design is dictated by functionality. And dictated by functionality is a big thing because, if you have to design a product a certain way in order to make it functional, then you can't patent that because then it's been dictated by functionality. But if you just happen to design it a certain way and those parts are functional or are, used for functionality, then it's okay. But anyway, so Apple gave a couple of suggestions. I thought this was interesting. Apple gave suggestions for alternative designs that were based on both other smartphones within the industry and alternative designs that were considered and discarded by Apple. So I was that would be interesting to see Apple's plan along, designing the iPhone. Okay, let's do it this way. No, we don't like that. We'll do it this way. Just kind of to see the different designs that they came up with. But also interesting, what other smartphones did they reference? Because, to me, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree, all smartphones look the same. And that's one thing we say, Apple, if you're going to sue Samsung, then you're basically saying that everybody stole from you. And, I mean, that's not true. So, I would kind of, curious to see what other smartphones Apple referenced that said, okay, this design is fine, you can use this. But that's one of Samsung's arguments, functionality, basically saying that, Apple's design is so simple, it's so minimalistic that it's all just functional, and we had to use that design. And in the end, the courts, again, they didn't really make a definite conclusion on that one. Samsung's other design, excuse me, I have something in my eye. Samsung's other argument, did I say design? Samsung's other argument was anticipation and obviousness, basically saying, one, this is the only way to design a phone, and two, you weren't the first one to come up with this design. And I thought Apple used an interesting argument here. The patent for the iPhone shows a black glass-like surface. However, Samsung's expert, whose first name I can't pronounce, but his last name is Sherman, so I'm going to say Mr. Sherman. Samsung's expert, Mr. Sherman, explained that, hold on, when I rubbed my eye to get whatever it is out of it, my contact got out of alignment, and so now everything's kind of blurry. Explained that making the front cover transparent black would have been an obvious choice in January of 2006 because the display screens available at that time were only commercially available in shades of black. So using black for the unified front surface was not only an obvious choice, it was the natural default. So kind of like, whoop-ha, Apple, we got you. I mean, you can't patent that because it was the obvious choice. It was the only way to design a phone back then. I thought that was an excellent argument by Samsung. Unfortunately, the court said, while it may have been technologically possible at the time of the iPhone patent was invented to have a flat, black, translucent front screen, this does nothing to explain why it would have been obvious for a designer to have adopted this design choice. So the courts didn't agree with him, but that's one of the arguments that Samsung used. But prior art is, again, another big part of Samsung's case because that's one thing that we bring up a lot too, is that, Apple was not the first one to use this design. And I showed a couple of examples of what Samsung is using in terms of prior art in the article on phonedog.com. And so if you look at this graphic, starting on the top left corner there, this is... On the left here is Apple's iPad patent, but then there's also this reference tablet from 1994 known as the Fiddler Knight Ritter tablet, and you can watch this video on YouTube. It's basically whenever... let me go back to the camera. Basically, they were talking about in this video when tablets were going to take over and they were going to be awesome and everything you could do with them. And the tablet, as you saw in the picture, it's basically exactly the same design as Apple's iPad, and this was way back in 1994. So Samsung is using that to say Apple wasn't the first one to use this design. Again, going back to this graphic, on the right side here, the bottom picture of that tablet, this is another tablet that Samsung is using as prior art. This is an HP compact tablet from 2002, and as you can see, again, it's the same basic design. Now, obviously, she's using a pin because they hadn't quite figured out finger touch responsiveness, but, the design is basically exactly the same. And then going down here to the very bottom, you can see Apple's 2 iPhone patents, but Samsung also found a Japanese patent for a device that, again, looks exactly the same as the iPhone. So, this is a large part of Samsung's case, using prior art to prove that Apple was not the first one to come up with these designs. Now, again, this is kind of an interesting note where Apple kind of shot themselves in the foot because Apple says, well, if you look at that Japanese patent and if you consider all angles of that device, then you'll notice that device actually has a keyboard where you can slide the screen up and it'll reveal a keyboard. And the courts are like, wow, you're right. That does show that it's not exactly the same design. But then the court said, however, Apple, because you did not claim all angles of the device in your patent when entering it into this trial, Samsung doesn't have to claim all angles of this patent in their case. And so I thought that was kind of careless on Apple's part. And then again, kind of shot themselves in the foot that, now whereas it would have kind of made this argument invalid. Samsung is allowed to use it because of a mistake on Apple's part. And if you're wondering, what angle of the iPhone did Apple not claim in the trial, if you look at the iPhone patents, at least according to the court documents, Apple did not include a view of the back of the iPhone, which is kind of interesting that they decided to leave that out. I guess they didn't feel it was important, but they didn't include the back of the device in the patent, and so which is one of the reasons why manufacturers make such a big deal about the back of their phone being different, or the back of their tablet being different. Be like, hey, see, Apple, it's different because the back isn't the same as yours, and they can do that because Apple they didn't show the back in their patent. So kind of interesting, but those are Samsung's arguments: functionality and anticipation and obviousness, and part of that is prior art. Now, are these arguments valid? Is Samsung able to prove itself and say, Apple, we did not do anything wrong, based on these arguments? Like I said, the courts didn't really, in some areas they agreed with Samsung, but then they backtracked, and then in some areas they agreed with Apple, and then they backtracked. So it's kind of, like I said, it was really wishy-washy, and they didn't really make a solid decision. And then on the idea of infringement, basically, do the two products look different enough? I mean, yeah, they look similar, but do they look different enough? And Samsung, again, brought out a really good point, and the court agreed. Samsung said that the ordinary observer buying an expensive electronics device will be particularly attentive to smaller details. So yes, the iPad and the Galaxy Tab look similar. And, we heard the story of, in court, the judge held up the iPad, the judge held up the Galaxy Tab, and the lawyers couldn't tell which one was different. We've heard that story. But Samsung says, someone's not going to just drop $200 or $600 on a phone or a tablet and just be like, oh yeah, that looks good, I'm going to buy that. They're not going to do that. They're going to look at the operating system. They're going to look at the features. They're going to look at the hardware, a more detailed, in-depth look at the hardware. And once they do that, they're going to notice obvious differences. Android is very, very different from iOS in terms of functionality. And the court agreed. So that's one area. Overall, like I said, half of it, the court agreed with Samsung, half of it, the court agreed with Apple. And, there was a lot of arguments that Samsung made, again, that I agreed with. And then there were some that Apple made that, they had a good point. Again, going back to, I got, the attorney to help me kind of understand exactly what was going on. And I wanted to bring out to you guys two arguments that I've heard a lot and that I've actually used myself in terms of, Apple, should they be suing or do they have a case? And one of them is, okay, Apple says that Samsung, basically copied the design of the iPad. But there's no other logical design for a tablet. All tablets are bound to look the same, just like all cars look the same, all TVs look the same, all ballpoint pens look the same. So why should this be any different? That's something that we've all said, or, everyone that's against Apple, that's something that we've said. And so I asked this attorney about it, why is that different in this case? Why is that not being brought up? And he gave an example. He said, yes, all cars have four wheels, a windshield, doors, and fenders, but not all cars need to or do look the same at a more detailed level. If Ford offered a car that looked essentially like a Corvette, one could easily imagine GM suing Ford for similar claims. Which is a good point. A Corvette and a Mustang, they both have four wheels, a frame, a windshield, and while these functioning parts are similar, the overall design and style are different for each car, or is different for each car. Now that kind of gets back more to trade dress, the style or the feel of a device that really shows people, which company it's from. And again, like I said, we're not going to get into trade dress, but it kind of shows you, explains to me what I've been wondering all along. All cars look the same, all TVs look the same. You don't see TV manufacturers suing each other. but that's because it's the details that make them different. And Samsung is going to have to prove that there are enough details that are different, or, Apple will have to prove that. Now, in terms of trade dress infringement, the burden of proof falls on Apple. Apple will have to prove that consumers were confused, whereas with patent infringement, Samsung has to prove that they did not infringe on those patents. But that's an argument that I've heard, and so I wanted to, coming from a patent attorney, basically the way that he explained it, that's the answer. If you guys have been wondering, why should this be any different from all TVs looking similar? It's because it's the details that matter. Another argument that I've heard a lot, and I think that I've used too, is the aspect ratio is different. I mean, yeah, they look similar, but if you look at the iPad, it's more of a kind of squarish device, whereas the Galaxy Tab is longer. It has it's narrower. It has a different aspect ratio. So what about that? I mean, does that not account for anything? Well, the judge commented on that. She said, even considering minor differences in the aspect ratio, the thickness, the brand markings on the back of the tablet, and the existence of a physical button like on the iPad, the Samsung product would be considered substantially similar in the eyes of an ordinary observer. So, they agree, yes, it does have a different aspect ratio, but overall, it looks a lot like the iPad. Now, you may be thinking, wait a minute, didn't the court just say that, to the ordinary observer buying an expensive electronics device, they'll be extremely attentive to smaller details like we just mentioned? That's what I'm talking about. The court, kept going back and forth, and it was, no real resolution whatsoever. The end result was, basically, we don't know who's right here, but Apple, you're not going to lose any money, so just don't worry about it until the trial is over. So, but anyway, that's not a very quick, but it's a shorter analysis of the trial, at least, for the preliminary injunction. It is fascinating, though, and the court documents, it was only 60 pages, which if you compare that to the FCC report that we got, that was 100 pages, and all this other crap that's 500 pages, 60 pages is really not that bad. But it's really interesting to look at it from the point of view of, from a legal point of view, because, I know a lot of people will fight for Android to the death, and a lot of people will hate Apple no matter what they do, and whatever. I mean, there's a lot of that. But, for me, at least, I want to know, is Samsung breaking laws? Is Samsung infringing on Apple's patents? I want to know the facts, the truth, based on law. And so it's interesting to see all of this progress and to see, what a judge will decide. Not just, some Apple fanboy or Android fanboy on Phone Dog or some other website, but to see what a judge actually thinks. And it was pretty fascinating to see all the arguments develop. And again, we'll have to wait till the actual trial. Like I said, this is a preliminary injunction, so not all evidence was there. Some of the arguments were not fully developed. So, we may see, more fully developed arguments that maybe make more sense or, have a little more evidence. But still, it was kind of interesting. And so that's that. But again, like I said, not a good week for Apple because they've been losing. Three battles, which are big ones. I mean, the one against Motorola in Germany, as far as I can tell, that was actually a trial. The one in Australia and the US, those were preliminary injunctions, not the actual trial. The trial still has to take place. But as far as I can tell, the one in Germany was that was it. The court decided, Apple, you infringed Motorola's patents, and you now have to, either pay them money, a licensing fee, or something. Which reminds me, I asked this attorney, again, this patent attorney, how he thought it would end. And he said, where's the quote? He said, it may surprise you that about 98% of all patent suits settle without trial. So there's a big chance that, this won't blow up into Samsung going bankrupt. It might just settle with a licensing fee or something. But he said, my sense, though, is that Apple may want to take one or more of its claims to trial. He said if Steve Jobs was alive, that would probably happen, but less passionate minds at Apple may be content to charge Samsung and others a license fee to do so. If so, And of course, if Samsung is willing to pay, then the case will settle. So I thought that was interesting. You know, Steve Jobs is the one that started all of this. He's the one that got, you know, personally insulted by Android stealing ideas from Apple, and he's the one that declared thermonuclear war on Android. So if he were alive, then yes, this would definitely go to trial, and he would not stop until he got, you know, Google and everyone else to stop using their stolen ideas in Android, you know, depending on how you feel. I'm using the quotes. But, you know, now that he's gone, and, you know, people who maybe don't feel as strongly about it, or, you know, for whatever reason, they just aren't Steve Jobs, it could be, you know, it couldn't be the resolution that Steve Jobs really wanted, which is great for Samsung. You know, I mean, it's good news for them. They don't have to worry about it. But that's still developing. That's still in the U.S. courts and still in Australia. The preliminary injunction was not granted. You know, Samsung can sell the Galaxy Tab, but they still have to go to trial as well in Australia. Let's move on to the Galaxy Nexus. Actually, you know what? I had two things I wanted to talk about. I want to ask you guys. We have 10 minutes left. You want to talk about Galaxy Nexus versus DROID RAZR Dogfight, or you want to talk about the new Blackberries? Because we can only talk about one, and I want to keep you guys happy. So just let me know which one you'd rather talk about. If you're even paying attention to me. I know you guys on Ustream, you don't even pay attention to what I'm saying. Okay, so, wow, it's a tie. I have 2 for Galaxy Nexus, and I have 2 for the Blackberries. Nexus, I think the Galaxy Nexus is going to win. Nexus versus DROID RAZR. It's a dogfight, and so you can watch the video, obviously, and so, you know. And of course, the new Blackberries, we have all the details on phonedog.com. But Aaron did a dogfight between the Galaxy Nexus and the DROID RAZR, and I wanted to see who would win, because, you know, true, the Galaxy Nexus isn't on Verizon, or, you know, hasn't been released on Verizon yet, even though it was supposed to come today, but it didn't. At least, you know, not that I know of. So, you know, it's not the Verizon version of the Galaxy Nexus, but it's still the Galaxy Nexus. I mean, overall performance is going to be the same. The speed test in terms of, like, data, you know, that'll be different. But overall performance, it's the same Galaxy Nexus versus the DROID RAZR. And honestly, you know, I don't believe Aaron gave a winner, but it was definitely a tough call, because the Galaxy Nexus has the obvious advantage of shipping with ice cream sandwich, which is a huge upgrade. It's not like, you know, 2.2 to 2.3. I mean, this is a huge upgrade, and that's an obvious advantage. On top of that, you know, it has the beautiful HD display, a larger display, 4.6 inches. So, you know, some definite advantages there. But then if you go over to the DROID RAZR, you know, it has still a large, beautiful display. It has an excellent camera, and, you know, I've compared pictures and HD video samples of the Galaxy Nexus and the DROID RAZR. In my opinion, the DROID RAZR is different. Now, is better, but, I mean, you may feel differently. But, you know, for me, the DROID RAZR has an excellent camera, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, the best video capture quality I've seen, video quality and audio quality. I think it can go head to head with the iPhone 4S, and Galaxy S2 obviously is up there as well. So it has that, you know, amazing camera, awesome design. So it actually was not as, you know, cut and dry as you would think, considering they're both high-end devices. But anyway, you can watch the dogfights. I think, and also overall, and just, you know, watching the video, and of course, you know, I should tell you guys, when you watch the video reviews that we do, and we say, you know, I haven't really noticed any lag at all, and then we're in the web browser and we're doing pinch to zoom and it lags like crazy, like, don't worry about that, because that's one split-second example. You know, we have a far greater array of evidence to prove our point. You know, we've been using it for days or a week or however long it is. So if you're watching a video and we say, like, it lags and you don't see any lag, or we say it doesn't lag and you see lag, like, don't take that as that's exactly how it performs all the time, just so you know. But in the video, I'm going to, like, completely just go against everything I said. In the video, it seems like the Galaxy Nexus lagged a little bit more than the DROID RAZR, which, I mean, they both have the same processor, so it really shouldn't make any difference. And again, you know, performance is probably going to be the same. This was like a small sample. But anyway, that was just, you know, that was just what I saw. But really, you know, you guys can check it out. Which one do I prefer? You know, I've always said I hate Motorola's UI, but then again, you know, it does have an awesome camera. The display is still gorgeous on the DROID RAZR and still is a large, you know, display. So, you know, having an HD display may be a little better, but I don't think it's as big of an advantage as it would be if you were comparing it to something else with, you know, not as good of a display. So, I think I would still go with the Galaxy Nexus, just because Android 4.0, and we don't know when the DROID RAZR is going to get 4.0, and not saying that you shouldn't buy the DROID RAZR, but I'm just saying, you know, we've heard that it could come in early 2012, but I mean, 3 months away or 4 months away, it doesn't seem like that long, but you would be surprised how quickly your attention switches to something else. I know, because I see your questions all the time. I read your comments. I know what you guys are thinking. And so you're thinking 3 months isn't that long, but get back to me 3 months from now and then tell me how you feel. So that is the Dogfight, and I probably didn't tell you a lot of details about it because, like I said, it was hard to pick. At least for me, I kept, you know, there were parts of the Dogfight where I was like, okay, yeah, larger display, Android 4.0, definitely the Galaxy Nexus. But then the camera, okay, that's better. And then, you know, the web browser seemed to be a little bit better. I don't know. I think the DROID RAZR, it's a lot thinner. So I went back and forth. You guys watch it and decide. But that's pretty much it that we have for the news today. I didn't get a chance to talk about the new Blackberries. Sorry, guys. We just got a leaked 2012 roadmap for RIM and its BBX / BlackBerry 10 phones. We heard about the BlackBerry London, the BlackBerry Milan, the BlackBerry Lisbon, BlackBerry Nevada, and BlackBerry Forest, or Black Forest. I wonder if I just left off the BlackBerry. In my notes, it says Black Forest, but that can't be correct. And then we got a leaked picture. Apparently, I'm going to talk about it anyway. I don't care if I didn't have time. And then we got a leaked picture of the BlackBerry Milan. This is it. It's a slider. I think it looks pretty cool. You know, I read the comments, and everyone's like, yawn, whatever, BlackBerry sucks. It's like, for one thing, you sound like an idiot when you say that, because no operating system sucks. Second of all, I think it looks great. So that's the BlackBerry Milan. But anyway, you guys can check out that article. I'll have it in the show notes, of course, if you guys, you know, read that, or the show notes and stuff. I'll have links and everything there. And of course, it's on PhoneDog right now. It should still be on the front page. But anyway, let's move on to the open Q&A. Thank you guys for sticking around. If you have any questions, I will be free. I'll be happy to answer them. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave your question or comment below. I read all of them, even the mean ones. And I'll try to answer them on YouTube as well as Ustream. And then I'm also on Facebook. I think there's one person on Facebook. Of course, that comments from 36 minutes ago. But, okay. The Galaxy Nexus is awesome. Android really step it up with this. Yes, you're right. I think the Galaxy Nexus is pretty awesome. I think Ice Cream Sandwich is awesome. I don't think it's just the Galaxy Nexus, although it's a good phone. But I think like 80% of what makes it so great is Ice Cream Sandwich. I mean, admit it. You know, it's not like the hardware is extremely beautiful. The camera is disappointing. Okay, like 80% of what makes that phone good is Ice Cream Sandwich. You know, if you think about it like that, then it's kind of like, oh, well, that's disappointing. But, you know, I'm just speaking the truth. Android is starting to look more like Windows Phone OS. It's irritating. You know, I don't really see that. Maybe if, you know, more details about what you're talking about. I will say those 3 dots on on Ice Cream Sandwich, like where it has the 3 dots to expand and give you more options, totally stole that from Windows Phone. And it's just like, dude, Android, you were supposed to be, you know, you were supposed to be the pure one. You know, Apple stole from you, you're not supposed to go and steal from somebody else. That kind of got me on a sore spot. So I'm getting the Samsung Stratosphere soon. Can you tell me how it is on web since it's LTE and all? It was great. LTE is super fast. Now, like, LTE speeds are going to vary depending on coverage and area, blah, blah, blah. That's what we always say. Just keep that in mind. But for me, LTE speeds, Verizon's LTE speeds have always been like super fast, faster than they should be, faster than advertised speeds. And that could just be that I'm in a good coverage area. But yeah, web browsing has been great. I actually have the Stratosphere. I think it's back there. But yeah, I've been very pleased with it. Samsung and Apple, why don't the courts just let the consumer decide? Because the consumer is not a judge. Name an average consumer that knows all of the laws on patent and trade dress infringement. They don't know the laws, and so they should not be allowed to decide. And I'm not, I don't mean that to sound, whatever, pro Apple or pro Samsung. I'm just saying, they know the laws, and so let them decide. It's their job anyway. You are correct. Ice cream sandwich is awesome. My Galaxy Nexus, just like my Galaxy S2 as far as hardware. Thanks, and I looked up the map. I'm also in a really good coverage area, and I want to see the Stratosphere, put it on camera. It's back there. In fact, I don't know, it might even be in a box right now. Is the LG Optimus slider a good phone on Virgin Mobile? We have not tested out the Optimus slider, and so I cannot tell you from personal experience. I do know that the Optimus V was a great device. I would recommend it to anybody. And so my hypothesis is that performance should be equally as great. But, I don't know when we're going to get it or if we're going to get it. We don't get a lot of prepaid phones the way that we used to. I know we used to get a lot of prepaid phones, and so now every time a new one comes out, you guys expect us to get it. But we don't get them as much as we used to. So there's not a good chance that we're going to get it. So just letting you know. Sydney, what is your view on WebOS going open source, and who is the most likely manufacturers? Taylor actually just wrote an article on that. At least he was. I don't know if it's published yet. Yeah, he did. It's up on PhoneDog right now. I actually haven't gotten a chance to read it yet because, I've been preparing for this. What do I think of it? I think it's great. If it means that WebOS can stay alive, then, heck yeah. Who do I think, is WebOS dead? I've heard a lot of people say that, that now that WebOS is going open source, that it's dead, which I don't know where that logic comes from. And again, I haven't been able to read any of those articles because I've been, working on this. So I don't know. It seems like a good thing, but, I'd have to dig around some more and see what analysts are really saying about it. Who's the most likely manufacturers? I don't know. We've heard that in the past, we've heard HTC would be interested, as well as Samsung, but Samsung, denied that claim really quickly, so I'm not really sure. On Facebook, there's a question. When do you think the LG marquee is going to finally appear on Virgin Mobile? I really don't know. Okay, back to Ustream. Thanks for reading my comment. You're welcome. HTC plus WebOS equals amazing. If HTC got WebOS, it would not look like WebOS. I'm just going to say that. Look at HTC Sense. That doesn't look like Android. It looks like Android, but okay, here's an example of how heavy HTC Sense is. Okay, the HTC Freestyle is a feature phone. It does not run Android. It's just a feature phone, but it comes with HTC Sense UI on top of, the proprietary OS that it runs. But it looks exactly like Android. So that's HTC Sense. That's how much it does. It's almost like its own operating system. Granted, it makes the Freestyle look similar to Android. So there are those elements there. But basically what I'm saying is that it would change it a lot. Do you like Android ice cream sandwich? I do. Yeah, I do. I like, this is going to sound really cheesy, but I like all operating systems, world peace. But no, seriously, I like Android. I used it for, couple years. I still have an Android device. I think it's awesome. I love widgets, the customization. I use Windows Phone as my primary, or on my primary device. I love Windows Phone. I think it's great. I think 90% of the people that trash Windows Phone have not used it. I used a WebOS device, and I thought it was awesome. WebOS is one of the greatest operating systems out there. And then I've used iOS. I mean, they're all amazing. I don't get this whole, you know, WebOS sucks, Windows Phone sucks. Android is awesome, but so is every other operating system. WebOS is aight. Okay. What was your first smartphone? I don't remember. I remember my first phone was a Samsung flip phone on Sprint, and I've tried so hard to find like which one it was, but I can't seem to find the exact model. My second phone was an LG View. I had that phone, but I don't remember my first smartphone. LG Esteem is way better than the LG Revolution. It's the 2.3.4 and the revamped UI. It's so much better, plus Metro PCS has real 3G in LA now. Awesome. Since you no longer have it, can you tell us the name of your old Android smartphone that you said the battery could get you through a full day? I don't remember. I don't remember saying that. You know, I've used Android phones before that could get me through a full day. Like, you know, when I had the Optimus M, the Optimus V, like the Optimus 1 phones, those phones had really great battery life because they had such a small display. You know, I could get through a full day on those. But it really just depends on, you know, your usage habits. What do you want in the next Windows Phone update? What do I want? I want live tiles to work better. I want them to be more reliable. They're awesome now, and I think it's definitely improved, but just there's some times when there's some hiccups with it. You know, I know there are some things, I just can't think of them. I can't think of them, but don't take that to mean that there isn't. I know, like, there's been things where I've been like, wow, I wish this were a little bit different, but I can't think of what it is. I'm sorry. Is it true? Wait, hold on. I lost the comments. Okay. Resizable tiles. Oh, yeah, resizable tiles in Windows Phone would be nice. Sydney, what do you think of the Lenovo Ice Cream Sandwich Tegra 3 tablet in 2012? Let me see if I have that in my notes. I don't. I don't know. I can't tell you what I think about it. I don't know why I don't have that in my notes. I'm sorry. Still, you know, Tegra 3, that would be awesome. The Transformer Prime is going to be freaking awesome. I mean, it also has the Tegra 3 quad-core processor, so, you know, it'd probably be equally as great. But, I mean, I just love the Transformer with the keyboard. I think that was an awesome idea. I would get a Windows Phone, but it's get in and out and get back to your life. Sorry, but my phone is my life. Oh, well, that's a good point. Yeah, Windows Phone, it's, you know, I know Android fans trash it for not being customizable, but, you know, if Android wasn't so customizable, then you wouldn't even care. So it's not every OS has to be just like Android in order to be great. Whoa, that was deep, Sydney. I should write that down. Anyway, so yeah, it's not customizable, and I love that. I mean, I would spend hours customizing my Android device, and then the next day I would just want to change it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't have time. I mean, I work all day. I'm busy on the weekends. I'm married. I have responsibilities. I don't have time to spend hours customizing my device. I just don't. So, yeah. Sydney, will Motorola make any high-end phones with a slide-out keyboard? I don't know. The Droid 4, obviously. What happened to the days when you only had to charge your phone every week? I know. I would... Like my LG View, you know, and then the stupid Samsung flip phone I had, I would charge that like, you know, maybe every 2 days, every 3 days. I remember when it wouldn't last me like 2 days, I was like, something's wrong with this battery, because something was wrong with the battery. When it wouldn't last you like 3 days, you were like, what the heck? It was, I know, those were the days. Sydney, oh, I already answered that. Yeah, this happens from time to time. The stream is just like jumping all over the place, so I'm kind of missing comments. What do you think about Microsoft? What do you think about Microsoft made a good choice releasing the Xbox Live app on iPhone? Smart move. Sure. I haven't read a lot about it, but you know, it's, you know, available to more users. Read the comments. I am. It's a conspiracy. Okay. I come up with random questions just to have a question to ask, and then I make myself think I actually care about Sydney's answer. No offense, Sydney. That's okay. You know, this is an open conversation. It's an open forum. You can say whatever you need to say. I'm just talking. You know, this is just a chance for us to just talk. You know, have a nice conversation. Do you like BBX? Like on the BlackBerry Playbook, I think it's great. You know, it has a lot of elements of WebOS, which is, you know, however you feel about that, they're great elements. So, you know, wow, okay. I'm gonna just ban you. AJ, are you the mod? Is there any way you can ban Motorola Click series? Because that's just like way too much. Let me see. What was I talking about? I'm sorry. I forgot. I just got totally off topic there. Is Virgin Mobile getting any new phones? We heard rumors of Virgin Mobile getting phones. Let me see if I can remember what they are, because I didn't write them in my notes. I'll have to get back to you on that one. Oh, yeah, it's right there. The Venture and the Chaser. Let me see if these are smartphones. Looks like they are smartphones. They're Android smartphones. You can check them out. It's on PhoneDog. Just do a search for Virgin Mobile on PhoneDog.com, and it was the first article that popped up. Can't find him in the chat list. Okay, I tried to ban him, and it might have worked, so it might even be a problem now. Okay, you were talking about BlackBerry phones. Okay, I don't remember what I was... widgets are in the Android market. Duh. Okay. Sydney, do you think... oh, that's right. I was talking about that. Okay. Do you think... I hear that BlackBerry is not going to be calling it BlackBerry 10 for some sort of copyright reason. Do I think it can save RIM? You know, I don't think it's just about, you know, one thing. I think it's a lot of things. I think... the hardware, you know, processor improvements, different things like that, you know, 4G devices, that's, they've done things like the hardware is great now. The 4G phones, that's also great too. Having phones with a larger display, I think also having different form factors, which it seems like they're planning on doing. The pricing, I think there's a lot of things that are important, and BlackBerry 10 is one of those. And if it can come together quick enough, and if they can, you know, be efficient in designing devices, releasing devices, getting them to carriers, then yeah, I think RIM will be fine. There's no reason why RIM should die. There's no reason why they can't come back from this unless they just continue to make bad decisions. I sound like I actually know what I'm talking about. I'm so good at this. Okay, I found the app that can detect the carrier IQ if it's on your phone. It's called... yeah, I saw that in the app market, that it's an app that can detect your phone, and I think it's either not free or there's like a donation version. Like, don't download that app because, for one thing, that's dumb. Okay, that dude's just trying to get money. And second of all, you don't have to, because it's very easy to find. Like, as soon as I saw that video, I was like, wow, I want to see that. So I got out my phone. It was a Samsung device. It was not my phone. It was one that I was testing. It was an Android device. But it was a Samsung device, and he was using an HTC device, so it's a little different. But I just searched for like 2 minutes, and I found it. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to hurt the guy, but I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's worth it to buy that app. Did you hear about Verizon banning Google Wallet on the new Nexus phone? Yeah, Verizon said it wasn't them, so I'm not sure. Good thing I didn't download that Carrier IQ app. Yeah. Is a Verizon iPhone expected to get worse battery life than the AT&T one because of the CDMA radio? If there's a difference, it's probably negligible. You know, probably not that big of a deal. Okay, it's 4:59, which means we have time for just a couple of more comments. Let me see if I can get some last-minute questions here. From Facebook, I don't think there's any more comments on Facebook. There's not. Okay, so... let me just get a couple more questions from Ustream. Do you have any freaking tattoos? No, I don't. The LG Esteem... wait, are these comments... okay, no. I just want to make sure I was reading recent comments. swag, root, my Mac, finally. Okay. Well, those were the last minute questions. Good job, guys. But thanks, guys, for showing up. And I'll be posting this on YouTube, so if you missed anything, you can check that out. And, you know, if you miss anything, I'll have the timeline so you can, like, jump around. If I missed a question, you can send me a message on Twitter. My screen name is phonedog_Sydney. Or again, you'll leave a comment on YouTube. I read those, and I'll try to answer some if I can. But I'll be back next week, same time, 5 p.m. Eastern time on Ustream, also on Facebook. And I think that's it. I will see you guys later. Bye.